Joining me now from here in Washington is Nicole Smith. She's a research professor and chief economist at the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce. Professor, explain for our international audience systemic racism in the U.S. when it comes to the financial industry, loans, real estate, and why it's more difficult for minorities to build wealth here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so very much for having me on this show tonight. The persistent black-white wealth gap that we observe today is nothing new. It's persisted in this country for centuries, and indeed, ever since we were able to measure it, we've seen an increasing divide between blacks and whites. What is apparent today is that for every dollar that a white household earns or owns in wealth, the black household has the equivalent of about 12 cents. If you were to look at the wealth gap between whites and Hispanics, for every dollar that a white person owns, the Hispanic family has 21 cents. So that's an 88-cent difference for black families and a 79-cent difference on the dollar for Hispanic families. What this has meant is that over the years, accumulated racism and accumulative policies that prevent people of color from moving forward have revealed themselves in this huge disparity today. Especially in education and healthcare and housing, where we see huge disparities exist, these have been the source of the racial wealth gap over time.
Nicole, last year, JP Chase pledged $30 billion to address systemic racism in banking. Citigroup is doing something similar. Do you see change happening right now, and what more needs to happen to see a major difference here?
Absolutely. We need to really move the needle on this. And what happens is that we have a lot of foundations come in and they try to figure out, well, what can be done to move the needle on education? What can be done to move the needle on healthcare? But this is an entire system that needs to be adjusted. In addition to creating equality of opportunity in education, we have to create equality and opportunity in the jobs that people get by the time they graduate. We've seen the current administration pledge trillions of dollars in the American Families Plan in trying to close some of this racial wealth gap. So, I mean, it's really a huge task, but if we continue to work at it each unit at a time, then maybe in another generation or two, we can see closing up the divide.
Right, more money towards minority-owned businesses, loans, that sort of thing. Talk to us about the role of generational wealth in the United States and how money and assets are passed down over the years. That kind of impact, because sometimes intelligence isn't enough.
Absolutely. 55 cents of every dollar in wealth is passed on to the next generation. And when we look at the racial disparity in generational wealth, we can understand why African Americans are having such a hard time getting to the front of the line. Every single race that we start, we are 4 yards behind. So it's really important to start today. It's really important to make sure that we have equality of opportunity in employment, equality of opportunity in education, so that we can get those jobs, that we can continue to accumulate wealth, that we can pay off our student loans in better quantities that we've been doing in the past, and we can start to accumulate wealth now for the future generations.
All right, Professor Nicole Smith, great having you on. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.